Did the latest election make you or your fellow citizens more free? Find out all the details here. What's in the news with stories on government murder, Jeff Sessions is gone, jury nullification, right to bear arms, taxation is theft, and bad cops. And a Statists Gonna State segment on a bevy of news from the FDA. This episode is brought to you by ZenCash, now known as Horizen, a cryptocurrency that infuses privacy, anonymity, and security done right. Also brought to you by SmartCash, an easy-to-use, fast, and secure cryptocurrency that supports everyday use for everyday transactions.
Welcome to The Lava Flow, channeling the flow of information to the libertarian, anarcho-capitalist, voluntarist, and agorist community. Find us at thelavaflow.com. Here's your host, Roger Paxton.
Thank you for joining me this week. From the state that the Free State Project chose for their home exactly 15 years ago, this is the show that will bring you the people, places, and events that everyone in the Liberty Rebellion needs to know. You can catch me on Twitter at The Lava Flow Pod. This is episode 111, Election Update, and it's Tuesday, November 20th, 2018, when there have already been more than 830 people killed by police this year, and the United States debt clock shows us at more than $21,730,800,000,000 in debt. What's wrestling my jimmies this week? You're about to find out. Let's do it to it. As you guys know, last week was Election Day. I encouraged you to join the growing number of people who decide voting is a waste of time. You know voting is useless when everyone is touting this last week's election as a massive turnout, when less than 47% of the voting-eligible population cast a vote at all. But taking the entire population into account, only 33% of people in the country chose your rulers and laws for you this year. Consensus, my ass. As with any election season, there were, of course, good and bad that came out of it. First, the good. 2 states, Missouri and Utah, passed medical marijuana, increasing the count to 33 states that now allow some form of medical marijuana. Michigan legalized recreational marijuana with 57% of the vote, becoming the 10th state to do so. That law allows adults 21 or older to possess 2.5 ounces or less of marijuana in public, transfer that amount to other adults, possess up to 10 ounces at home, and grow up to 12 plants for personal consumption. It also charges the Michigan Department of Licensing and Regulatory Affairs with creating a licensing system for commercial production and distribution, subject to a 10% tax on retail sales, of course. A couple of states passed some good criminal justice reform, too. Louisiana approved a measure to require unanimous jury verdicts in order to convict someone of a felony. And in Florida, voters approved a ballot measure that will restore voting rights to an estimated 1.4 million people with felony records in the state. Floridians also voted on Amendment 11, which allows for retroactive reduction of criminal sentences should laws change in the future. And here in New Hampshire, the state passed 2 ballot measures that supposedly will increase freedom in the state. The first gives taxpayers the right to take legal action against the state or local government where the taxpayer resides to declare that the government spent or has approved spending public funds in violation of a law. The language will be added to the New Hampshire state constitution. This reverses a case in 2010 that reversed that original right. The second one provides that individuals have a right to live free from government intrusion in private or personal information. The actual language added to the New Hampshire Constitution says, "An individual's right to live free from governmental intrusion in private or personal information is natural, essential, and inherent." It sounds great, yes, and if we have to have a constitution, then language like this should be added to it. I only wish it were less vague and had some teeth, like penalties for government agencies, including the federal government, when they try to ignore this law, because you know they will. On the minus side, though, voters in 3 states opted to expand the bankrupt Medicaid program and piss more taxpayer dollars down the drain, including Utah, Nevada, and Idaho. Arizona voters sided with teacher unions over children and said no to expanded school choice. Voters in 2 states increased the minimum wage, including Missouri, which passed a bill by 62% to increase the minimum wage from $7.85 to $12 per hour. And Arkansas, where a law passed to increase from $8.50 to $11 with 68% of the vote. North Dakotans decisively rejected a proposal to make marijuana legal for recreational purpose. Ohioans failed to pass a good sentencing reform measure that would have converted many felony drug offenses to misdemeanors and many other good reforms as well. And voters in Arkansas and North Carolina approved measures to require an identification in order to vote. And overall, I would say this election was a wash for liberty across the country. I see no evidence either way overall that the country moved more or less free after this election. Liberty did not win this election, nor does it win any election. The only winner of this election is government, as 110 million people went to the troughs to beg for some slop from the buckets of our rulers. Have you subscribed to the Lava Flow on iTunes or any mobile device yet? Then what's wrong with you? Go to thelavaflow.com/subscribe so you don't miss a minute of the show. And while you're subscribing, make sure to leave me a 5-star rating and review the show to help others find our podcast. thelavaflow.com/subscribe.
It's time to shake up your podcast feed, folks, by subscribing to Lions of Liberty, the only libertarian variety show out there. Spend Mondays with me, Mark Claire, as I feature in-depth interviews with great names in the libertarian community and fun roundtable discussions.
Electric Liberty Land with me, Brian McWilliams, every Wednesday, your weekly dose of comedy, culture, and liberty.
And Felony Fridays with me, John Odermatt, where I expose injustice in the broken criminal justice system.
Find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and at lionsofliberty.com.
This is Chris Spangle, and I am the host of We Are Libertarians, which you can find in iTunes, Google Play, or at wearelibertarians.com. We are a podcast that brings you all of the irreverence that modern politics deserves by examining current events from a libertarian perspective. So please, check us out at wearelibertarians.com.
What's in the news? The news you need to know from a libertarian perspective.
In government murder news, U.S.-led coalition airstrikes killed 14 civilians in eastern Syria. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, the U.S.-led coalition has killed at least 14 civilians in airstrikes against ISIS-held territory. The victims included at least 5 children. The nationality of the warplanes is unclear. In general, though, U.S. warplanes have been the most active in this area among the coalition. The strikes targeted ISIS-held towns in Hajin and Susa. 9 ISIS members were reported killed in the same series of strikes. The overall death toll, particularly among civilians, is expected to rise as a number of people were gravely wounded in the course of these strikes, and the tiny ISIS-held territory naturally has limited access to medicine. The U.S. has been trying to back a Kurdish invasion of this territory, but with limited success. The Kurds have had to back off to focus on defending against invading Turkish forces while ISIS has been inflicting growing casualties. This is now the second week in a row where I have had to bring you news of civilians, including children, murdered, most likely by U.S. warplanes. This is absolutely disgusting, folks. Where is the anti-war contingent of the American populace, and why are they not screaming from the fucking rooftops? Fuck U.S. foreign policy of death and destruction and sanctions in the neck. In good riddance news, Attorney General Jeff Sessions resigned from his office after more than a year of public criticism from his boss. Embattled Attorney General Jeff Sessions resigned at the request of President Donald Trump on Wednesday. Sessions' Chief of Staff, Matthew Whitaker, will serve as acting Attorney General. Whitaker also will assume oversight of the ongoing investigation by Special Counsel Robert Mueller into Russian interference in the 26th presidential election and possible collusion by Trump's campaign in that meddling. Bob Woodward's recently published book about the Trump administration, Fear, says that the president had called Sessions mentally retarded and a dumb Southerner. Trump has publicly claimed, "I said neither," about Sessions. Trump told The Hill in an interview with that news site in September, "I don't have an attorney general." Trump's press secretary, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, said the White House received a resignation letter from Sessions earlier Wednesday and Trump accepted it. Sessions' letter to Trump, which is not dated, begins by saying, "At your request, I am submitting my resignation." Look, I wholeheartedly endorse this firing / resignation / whatever the hell they want to call it. Jeff Sessions has been fucked in the neck on this show before with his backward, antiquated, incorrect opinions on cannabis and his attempts to stop its legalization. Hell, as his last official move in office, he severely limited the Justice Department's ability to enter into court-enforced decrees to reform police departments that have shown a pattern of civil rights violations. Jeff Sessions is an evil human being, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Don't let the door hit you on the ass on the way out, Jeffy Poo. ZenCash has changed their name to Horizen to better represent their transition from a pure cryptocurrency to a pioneering platform that protects consumer data. They're focusing more on the wider vision of what ZenCash was all about. The new name, Horizen, reinforces that the project is forward-thinking and visionary and will broaden the horizons of what the community can accomplish in the world using the platform. Not only is it one of the best privacy-oriented cryptocurrencies with zero-knowledge technology built into it, but they also have private chat over their network. And soon, Horizen will include the ability to publish information and go anywhere on the web, all with complete privacy. They are working toward the day when anyone will be able to build privacy-based applications on the Horizen platform and generate income from them. This will allow Horizen to bring thousands of real-life services to the community, services that provide freedom, utility, and privacy. The unique spelling of Horizen is a nod to their heritage and recognizes that they remain committed to the vision that their project was built upon. Their coin and ticker symbol remains Zen. So ZenCash is now Horizen, and Horizen is bringing privacy to life. You can learn more at horizen.global. That's HORIZEN.global. In jury nullification news, a federal judge advocated for jury nullification after being shocked by an overzealous child pornography prosecution. District Judge Stephen R. Underhill of the District of Connecticut said, "This is a shocking case. This is a case that calls for jury nullification." The prosecution that shocked Underhill involves Yehudi Manzano, a 30-something man charged with producing and transporting child pornography after saving and then deleting a video of his teenage sex partner to and from his phone and its associated Google Cloud account. Norman Pattis, Manzano's attorney, said, "The only people who ever saw it were the guy who made it, the girl who was in it, and the federal agents." But that, prosecutors say in the indictment, was enough for the federal government to proceed with charges under the assumption that Manzano acted knowingly and having reason to know that such visual depiction would be transported and transmitted using any means and facility of interstate and foreign commerce. And that's important, because the mandatory minimum sentence under federal law for recording video of sex with an underage partner is 15 years. That draconian sentence, independent of what was in store in the entirely separate state trial for sex with a minor, was too much for Judge Underhill. He said in court, "I am absolutely stunned that this case, with a 15-year mandatory minimum, has been brought by the government. I'm going to be allowed no discretion at sentencing to consider the seriousness of this conduct, and it is extremely unfortunate that the power of the government has been used in this way. To what end, I'm not sure." Judge Underhill acknowledged that he's not allowed to encourage jury nullification. But if evidence comes about the length of the sentence, or if Mr. Pattis chooses to argue, I do not feel I can preclude that. I don't feel I'm required to preclude that, and I think justice requires that I permit that. Mr. Pattis in this case is Norman Pattis, Manzano's attorney. The judge's appeal to jury nullification as a remedy for runaway prosecution didn't come out of the blue. Defense counsel and prosecutors had already sparred over the case's rather tenuous connection to interstate commerce, by which the federal government claimed jurisdiction. Pattis argued in court, "Juries exist for a reason. They stand between the government and the accused, and they provide the accused with an opportunity to hold the government to its burden of proof. And in certain trials in our history, juries have done more than that. They've said the law is wrong, and we, the people, say it's wrong." It's extremely rare for a judge, especially a federal judge, to acknowledge or even allow a jury nullification defense at all, much less make statements seeming to endorse such a defense. This is a huge victory for jury nullification, and if it works, this will set a precedence in federal court. In Right to Bear Arms news, I have two news stories for you. First, the First Circuit Court of Appeals has ruled there is no right to bear arms outside of your home. The court ruling said, mindful that the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited, District of Columbia v. Heller, 2008, we hold that the challenged regime bears a substantial relationship to important governmental interests in promoting public safety and crime prevention without offending the plaintiff's Second Amendment rights. The plaintiffs simply do not have the right to carry arms for any sort of confrontation or for whatever purpose they may choose. The court specifically said the decision applies to both open carry and concealed carry of handguns. They reserve the power to infringe on concealed carry more than open carry. Judge Celia wrote the decision for the unanimous three-judge panel. They held that allowing police to decide if a citizen has a need to carry a gun outside the home allows sufficient exercise of Second Amendment rights, so some arbitrary jackass can decide for you. So much for your constitutional right to keep and bear arms. A right that can arbitrarily be denied by the government is no right at all. It's effectively just another activity that may be allowed by the government if a bureaucrat decides to allow it. The Constitution is a useless document, unfit to exist. The second story is horrifying. Police in the statist haven of Maryland shot and killed a man in his home while serving a protective order under a new law which allows them to seize people's guns without due process. Since the new gun confiscation law went into effect on October 1st, police have carried out 114 such confiscation orders, which comes to over 3 such seizures each day. From the Baltimore Sun, 2 Anne Arundel County police officers serving one of the new red flag protective orders to remove guns from a house killed a Ferndale man after he refused to give up his gun and a struggle ensued early Monday morning, police said. The subject of the protective order, Gary J. Willis, 60, answered his door in the 100 block of Linwood Avenue at 5:17 a.m. with a gun in his hand. Anne Arundel County police said he initially put the gun down next to the door, but became irate when officers began to serve him with the order, opened the door, and picked up the gun again. A fight ensued over the gun, said Sergeant Jacqueline Davis, a police spokeswoman. One of the officers struggled to take the gun from Willis, and during the struggle the gun fired but did not strike anyone, police said. At that point, the other officers fatally shot Willis. Look, Gary Willis legally purchased and owned his weapon, and with no due process of law was told to give up his ability to protect his own life by thugs who came to his door in blue gang colors and badges in the middle of the night. He refused to follow their clearly unconstitutional order, so they murdered him in cold blood under the color of law. Do I need to say it again? Oh, you know I'm gonna. Unfit to fucking exist. SmartCash is an easy-to-use, fast, and secure cryptocurrency that supports everyday use for everyday transactions. SmartCash is focused on getting the currency back into cryptocurrency, and their vision is to replace centralized fiat currencies in day-to-day life. Too many cryptos talk about being used as a currency, but they are all focused on something else and leave user experience for both merchant and customer by the wayside. SmartCash is focused on being used for business payments and POS through such features like their Instant Pay, which allows for trusted transactions in a second, powered and secured by their 20,000 user-run smart nodes. SmartCash also has a Smart Hive proposal system that is funded by the blockchain, where any user can put forth a project proposal to expand the community, ecosystem, or technology. Holding one smart equals one vote, so all users can participate in voting without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a full node. The people working on SmartCash are broken up into 6 different Smart Hive structuring teams with dedicated team members that are completely funded by the blockchain. There is no CEO, no foundation, no centralized leadership, and there is no need for outside investors to come in and compromise any deals. Check out SmartCash today at thelavaflow.com/smart to find out how they are putting the cash into SmartCash and the currency into cryptocurrency. I believe this is truly a ground floor opportunity to get in on a rising tide. Get a wallet and find an exchange to purchase SmartCash at thelavaflow.com/smart. In Taxation is Theft news, even using your PlayStation is taxed in the People's Republic of Chicago now. Since 2015, Chicago's 9% amusement tax that we've talked about on the show in the past has been tacked onto the price of online streaming services like Netflix, Spotify, and Xbox Live. Now, the city has reached an agreement with Sony to start collecting the tax from PlayStation users who have an address in the Windy City, and the gamers aren't happy. First, they came for Netflix users, and I did not speak out because I didn't use Netflix. Then they came for Xbox users, and I did not speak out because I did not have an Xbox. Then they came for PlayStation users, and there was no one left to speak for me. Starting Wednesday, PlayStation users will be hit with the same 9% tax charged to other streaming service customers in Chicago. Gamer David Kim told WBBM-TV he doesn't understand the reasoning or timing behind the tax being implemented. Kim said, "You're just playing in the comfort of your own living room, playing PlayStation. Why do you have to be taxed on it? Makes no sense. Why should I have to pay extra if I didn't have any taxes before? Why do I have to pay now?" Chicago's amusement tax is already added to the ticket prices of sporting events, cultural performances, and anything else that might be considered fun. When streaming services were added into the mix in 2015, they were rolled in by administratively clarifying existing taxes rather than the city council voting on their inclusion. In other words, a bunch of unelected bureaucrats decided that having fun should be taxed, so they made it so. The Liberty Justice Center unsuccessfully sued to try to stop the tax, along with major video game companies, but the city continues to expand the amusement tax to additional services. The Chicago Tribune called the inclusion of streaming services the latest example of Mayor Rahm Emanuel boosting various smaller fees and fines to try to help close the city's gaping budget hole. I wonder what will be next in Chicago. But more importantly, I wonder when more cities and states will see how much money Chicago has been raking in with this shit and will start implementing these sorts of things as well. I bet it won't be long coming. In bad cop news, a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy was arrested on drug charges after a heist at a pot warehouse. The Los Angeles Sheriff's deputy pulled up to the pot-filled warehouse just after 3 o'clock in the morning. He held up an official-looking document to a guard who promptly unlocked a gate. The deputy and 2 other men, each of them armed and dressed in sheriff's jackets, got out. After locking the guard and 2 other employees in the back of the deputy's SUV, the men went to work lugging bags of marijuana from the warehouse. But far from an official raid, the deputy and his associates were carrying out a brazen heist, federal authorities said Friday. Deputy Mark Antrim and his team, which included more men who arrived with a moving truck, are accused of stealing hundreds of pounds of marijuana and safes filled with cash from the warehouse, which served as a distribution center for a legal marijuana operation. Antrim, a patrol deputy in the sheriff's Temple City station, and 2 other men were arrested Thursday on federal drug charges. During searches of Antrim's house and another man's home, agents found several weapons, ammunition, and about $350,000 in bundled cash, court records show. At a court appearance on Friday, the 3 men were appointed lawyers by a judge who ordered that they be kept in custody pending their detention hearings, which were continued to next week. Government officials said prosecutors will argue against bail. U.S. Attorney Nick Hanna said in a statement, Deputy Antrim allegedly was able to use his law enforcement expertise and his access to Sheriff's Department gear to stage a robbery that netted over $1 million in marijuana and cash. We cannot tolerate this type of behavior from sworn officers, and this case demonstrates our commitment to quickly address corrupt behavior by law enforcement. At the time of the robbery late last month, Antrim was not on duty and was not assigned to a narcotics unit that would have given him a reason to search a marijuana distribution warehouse in the city of L.A., according to a criminal complaint filed in the case. The failed con job is the second time this year that a Los Angeles County Sheriff's deputy has been arrested on drug charges. In January, Deputy Kenneth Collins and 3 other men were arrested by FBI agents and charged with operating a large-scale drug trafficking scheme. According to court records, Collins boasted that he hired other law enforcement officers to provide security to drug dealers and could assault people for his clients. When our law enforcement officers are breaking the law themselves and using their badges and authority over and over like this, it puts the entire operation of law enforcement run by the state, into question. A few bad apples truly does spoil the bunch. Exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per episode donation of as little as $1 an episode, or use Bitcoin. Get exclusive content, rewards, and help the Lava Flow become fiscally neutral while providing you more content. thelavaflow.com/support.
Are those dry, boring, run-of-the-mill political talk shows putting you to sleep on your commute or at work? Are you ready for some fun?
Look no further. Blast Off with Johnny Rocket is a Seattle-based podcast expressing viewpoints of free markets, voluntary exchange, badass music, wicked banner, and of course, drinking.
The Blast Off doesn't shy from the truth, but always brings the party.
Let's rock and roll, Raylene.
Bring it on, Johnny.
You can check us out at thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Again, that's thelaunchpadmedia.com/blastoff.
Launchpad Media. Always launching ideas in your direction. And now I'm crying over you.
Statists Gonna State.
There was a bevy of stories on the FDA recently. Most just terrible, of course. However, let's start with a good one. President Donald Trump signed the controversial Right to Try bill into law on Wednesday, which bypasses drug regulators to give gravely ill patients access to experimental medicines. The legislation allows patients with life-threatening conditions to ask drug makers for medicines that have cleared some testing but still haven't been approved by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration. Previously, patients would need to ask the FDA for access to experimental treatments. Last week, the House of Representatives approved the bill, the same version the Senate passed in August. It allows certain patients to ask drug makers for medicines that have passed Phase 1 of the FDA approval process but haven't been approved yet and are still undergoing testing. Patients must have exhausted other options and be unable to participate in a clinical trial. Drug makers aren't obligated to give patients the requested experimental medicines. Critics say the legislation undermines the FDA's authority to regulate drugs and could leave patients vulnerable to medicines that might not work or may even be harmful. Harmful, as opposed to death. Wah. This law lets free people who are dying access to pay for drugs that may give them a chance at life. Fuck the FDA and these critics in the neck for standing up for FDA's authority instead of the rights of dying people. And another story from the FDA that's rather unusual. The FDA approved a powerful new drug, an opioid, on Friday, despite strong criticisms and accusations that it bypassed its own advisory process to do it. I wonder what caused them to do this. A huge lobbyist, maybe? The new drug, Desuvia, is a tablet that goes under the tongue. It's designed for use in the battlefield and in other emergency situations to treat intense, acute pain. Known generically as sufentanil, it's a new formulation of a drug currently given intravenously. Critics say it will be incredibly easy for health workers to pocket and divert the drug to the illicit drug market, and because it's so small and concentrated, it will likely kill people who overdose on it. FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb defended the decision in a lengthy statement. There are very tight recommendations being placed on the distribution and use of this product. We've learned much from the harmful impact that other oral opioid products can have in the context of the opioid crisis. It can't be dispensed to patients for home use and should not be used for more than 72 hours. And it should only be administered by a healthcare provider using a single-dose applicator. This means it won't be available at retail pharmacies for patients to take home. And as for that huge lobbyist I mentioned a minute ago, yep, you guessed it, the Pentagon, head of the military-industrial complex. Gottlieb said, "I believe that the unique aspects of Desuvia, including those that make this drug a high priority for the Pentagon, differentiate this new formulation of sufentanil from other sufentanil products in a way that is consistent with population-based considerations for how it fits into the overall drug strategy. The FDA has made it a high priority to make sure our soldiers have access to treatments that meet the unique needs of the battlefield, including when intravenous administration is not possible for the treatment of acute pain related to battlefield wounds. And of course, the FDA, a bunch of unelected bureaucrats, want to continue to protect their authority, as this next story shows. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration plans to ban the sale of flavored e-cigarettes as early as next week, senior agency officials told the Washington Post yesterday, November 8th. Back in September, the FDA gave Juul Labs and 4 other e-cigarette brands an ultimatum. They had 60 days to prove they could keep their products away from minors, or else risk being pulled from the market. That grace period ends November 11th, and reports indicate that the FDA has already made up its mind. Senior FDA officials told the Post and other news outlets that the agency will prohibit the sale of most flavored e-cigarettes in convenience stores and gas stations across the country. In addition, online retailers will only be able to sell flavored vapes if they enact age verification requirements set out by the federal agency. FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb is expected to make these announcements next week. But there's an exception: mint and menthol flavors. Convenience stores and gas stations will still be able to sell e-cig cartridges in these flavors because menthol is still permitted in normal cigarettes, and there are concerns that users of mint-flavored e-cigs might switch to regular tobacco cigarettes instead. More on menthol cigarettes in a bit. Gottlieb said in a statement, "We know that the flavors play an important role in driving the youth appeal. Research has found that sweet flavors in particular are more likely to get teens hooked. In fact, a study published in July, led by researchers at the Yale University School of Medicine, found that teenagers preferred sweet-flavored e-cigarettes with no nicotine over e-cigs with nicotine but no sweetness." E-cigarette proponents argue that vapes are an important tool in helping adult smokers quit traditional cigarettes, though. A report released by the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on November 8th found that cigarette use among U.S. adults is at a record low, including my wife and I. But apparently the FDA is going after menthol cigarettes as well. Another article, citing senior agency officials familiar with the matter, the Wall Street Journal reported Friday that Commissioner Scott Gottlieb may be looking to begin a potentially multi-year process to have menthols banned. The process would reportedly require a year or more for any such ban to be finalized and an additional year for it to be enforced, according to the Journal. In its own report on the rumored proposal, the New York Times noted that Gottlieb indicated as recently as last month that such a ban on menthols could be forthcoming. But the paper said that the regulatory process the FDA would need to navigate to enact the ban could take several years. So let's get this right. The FDA wants to resist giving potential helpful drugs to dying people, but wants to take away products that help people who are killing themselves with cigarettes move to much less dangerous vaping. This makes total sense in no logical universe ever. Folks, the government is not here to help you. They are not here to save you. They aren't even here to be benevolent. They are here to rule you in everything that you do. Thank you for listening to the show this week. As always, I need to thank my favorite brainstorming partner, Jessica, for her help with the show. For the show notes to this episode, where I put links and other information that's been on this show, go to thelavaflow.com/111. I have no new supporters this week, but a longtime supporter and good friend, Kyle Ilm, upgraded his support from $5 per episode to a huge $10 per episode. Holy hell, Kyle. Thank you so much, sir. So thanks to Kyle and all of my other awesome supporters, I am at $289.50 per episode, or 57.9% of the way towards my next goal of $500 per episode. Thank you for all of your support, guys, really. Remember, when I hit this next goal, I will be upping the content I bring you from half an hour per week to a full hour. I know you want more content from me, and I want to give it to you, so add your pledge today to help me bring you twice the lava flow that you're getting today. So exercise your free market muscles by going to thelavaflow.com/support and giving a per-episode donation of as little as $1 an episode using Federal Reserve notes through Patreon or Bitcoin through Coinbase. I want to be able to bring you more content soon, so make sure to add your donation today to help make that happen. I have no new Apple Podcast reviews this week, but if you have a minute and you want to hear your review read right here on the show, please go to thelavaflow.com/Apple and leave me a rating and a review. All the cool kids are doing it. Thank you to everyone who's left me a rating and a review so far. You guys rock. To all of you who haven't, can you guys help me out and go leave a review for me? Go to thelavaflow.com/Apple to do that now. Until next time, keep striking the root.
Thank you for listening to The Lava Flow at thelavaflow.com. Don't miss an episode. Subscribe now at thelavaflow.com/subscribe. This has been a Pax Libertas Productions podcast.